All right. Next, let's look at the following section, which is going to be this particular product section right here. And this particular product section is going to be, we'll be placing some product cards. And those product cards will be having products that are actually coming from our Sanity products database. That's what we'll be making it. And not just that, we'll also be rendering all the products that are coming from Sanity. You'll be placing it like this. And also, once we click on this particular product cards, it should go to a page which has more details of a particular product. And there must be also some call to action buttons where we're able to select the number of items. And we also happen to have some description of the particular product that we have clicked. And this particular product should be different, by the way. This is just for design purposes. And let's get started. And in our code right here, I would like to create a new section right below this hero section. And that section, we should be placing it under components. So I'd like to go to components right here, create a new file called products.tsx. And inside this particular products.tsx, I like to have the boilerplate. And by placing this boilerplate, we're able to have some simple boilerplate code for functional component. And this is where we'll be also be making sure to call this particular section, where this particular section will be having this particular background. And of course, once we have done the background, we should be having a container. That container should be having this particular title right here. And inside that container as well, we should be placing a list of cards right here. These cards are actually a separate component as well. And that's what I like to walk you guys through. So first of all, let's add the background. So this particular div right here, of course, the outermost div should be having a class name. And that class name should be having the background color. So first of all, I'll just get started with the color. So in this case, I have PG dash open this particular square bracket. And inside here, I like to place a gray color, which have this particular hexa code. And next, I like to have the width to be full, since this is a section. So we need to make sure for the width to be full, and also some padding. So of course, I have to have padding of Y, and that should be around like 12 should do. And let's actually go to our browser. And in our browser right here, we don't actually find that particular section to be listed right below here, because we need to make sure to call it first right below our hero section. So in order to make sure to import it here, we must also need to be importing in our index file under components. So in this case, I will have import products coming from /products, and of course need to export it as well. Just need to be placing it right here, and of course need to be importing it inside our page.txx as well. Just need to place it right below here. And yeah, just select this. And once you select the first option, you'll be able to have these products to be listed automatically. And we can just directly go to our browser. And in our browser right here, we are able to have this particular section, which is placed right below this particular AirPods. We need to make sure to separate this particular section from the previous section. So first of all, I have to go to our products.txx file again. And also I have to add some margin of top, so empty. I'm going to add about like margin of 125 pixels. That should do, because we should be giving some more space than is required. And once we give that particular margin, it will be having this particular space right here. And of course, this section is where we should be placing this particular products section. And next, let's actually add container within this particular section. And let's actually add another new div. And inside this div, I have to have a class name. And this class name will be having container, because container is what we have placed in our globals.css right here. As you can see, in our globals.css, we are able to have this particular container. So this container should already be applied, because this is basically the same styling that we'll be using for most of the containers. So next, I have to add this particular text right here, which is best selling products. So inside this particular container, the first thing I have to add is a div. And this div is where I like to have our first text. So in this case, I have H1 tag right here. Inside the H1 tag, I like to have best selling like this. And just right below the H1 tag right here, I'm going to be placing another text. So that text is going to be, I would say, around like more like another description for what you're building. So in this case, I have like a discount, just like simple text. So in this case, enjoy up to 50%. And in our browser, we are able to find these two simple texts will be formed. And I like to change this particular size and the font weight as well. So in that case, you should be doing like this, best selling products. Now, first of all, for this particular first H1 tag right here, I like to have a class name. And this class name should be having the size of the text. So in this case, I like to have text followed by 3XL. And also font weight, I like to have like font dash bold. This should do. And by doing that, we're able to have just like this right here. And this will be exactly like how we have in the design right here. And next thing is I like to start adding this particular product cards right here. So first of all, I like to go to this particular, okay, as you can see right here, this particular div, I like to give some class name as well, so that it actually separates from the product cards. So in this case, I like to have some spacing of y-axis. So I like to give padding y of 4, and that will be, you'll be able to find some gap. We'll be separating the products from the title. And below this particular div, which is basically the title, I like to have another div. And this div is actually the div that we are going to be placing the list of cards. We're going to have a class name for this. And this class name, like, first of all, I like to have like a margin top first of 6. And before that, we should also be having some border, because I like to see just for a temporary purposes where I just like to see where is this particular border is located. So in this case, I have to have border dash black. That would be easier for me to see where and the size of this particular border is. So as you can see in our browser, you'll be able to find a simple line like this. This line is actually basically the div right here, since it does not have any padding. So this is why you're able to find a straight line. If you had a padding, you're able to have some space inside this particular div right here. And the next thing is that I like to add the card, by the way, inside this particular div. So in this case, I like to have like a div right here. And this div is basically meant for the card. So of course, the card will be having its own class name. So first of all, I can start with the background color. So bg-white. Followed by some padding. So this case, I'll just say padding dash 10. And of course, besides that, some shadow. So drop shadow dash MD. And also, I will have some corner radius. So in this case, I have rounded, should be LG. And also, when we place an image, I like to make that particular image to stay within this particular product card. So let us say overflow dash hidden. And inside here is like, I like to place the image of a product card, and also the description of a particular product, the label, the title, the price, all those things. So first of all, inside the particular product card, I like to place the image. And that image is basically coming from the Sanity. So in this case, I like to call this particular image, which is coming from next/image. And let me just make a component of it. And this particular image component will be having some ops. So we'll start with source. And this source is where it should be coming from Sanity image that we have already initialized in our Sanity. And what we'll be doing is that we're just going to be fetching this particular data that is coming, which is basically this particular data right here, as you can see. And this particular data is basically the one that we're going to be making use of to make into a product card. So first of all, I like to go to this particular source right here. And of course, we need to make sure to call that particular products that we have already have it in our page.tsx right here. We just need to be taking this particular products that we have already have. We should be placing our products.tsx right here, right at the top before return right here. Of course, we also need to be having await, client, and grok to be initialized as well. So await is basically the asynchronous coming from here, and client and grok is basically the import libraries. So in this case, I have to copy this and to place it right at the top right here. And besides that, I also like to make sure to make this particular list of products to be rendered as a separate object. In that way, we must be making use of map function. So we should be having this particular product card, which is right here, to be wrapped within a JavaScript syntax like this, which is also coming from products. And products is the array, by the way, array of objects. So in this case, I have products to be the name of the array, which is going to be making use of this to render the data, products data. And products we should be making use of map function .map. And inside of map is where we'll be placing the product object like this. And of course, we should be making use of like a arrow function. This arrow function will be pointing to a bracket like this. And of course, there's this particular arrow, since because we're using TypeScript, we should always initialize the object. So in this case, I'm just going to say any. This for now. I will also like to call index, which is a number. And we should be making use of this particular initialization, which is only meant for TypeScript. And next is that we should be taking this particular card that we have already did some initializations. Just need to be placing it inside this particular product. And there you go. And right now we are able to call the source image coming from products. And inside this particular source is like not a typical source, by the way, which since it's actually making use of Sanity, we must be making use of another new function called URL for image. So I have to type it URL for image, which is coming from sanity-library/image. And inside here, it's already been called at the top right here. And inside this particular function, we'll need to be placing some parameters, which is directly coming from products. And not to forget, we should also need to be completing this particular function. We should be making it this particular function to become a URL. So it should be like this, dot URL and some bracket right here. And inside here is where we'll be placing products dot images. And basically, if the images does exist, and then only we should be able to make use of products dot images data, and we should call the first image. So since images is actually an array, we should call the first image by having the first index of the image array like this. And that way we're able to call the first image coming from Next Sanity. And of course, next, besides source right here, we must be adding this particular alt. So I have some simple alt right here. In this case, I called the alt the slug, by the way. So products/slug. And next, let's go to the next prop right here, which is also the most important, which are height and the width. So in this case, I have width first. And let's give width of 220. And also, we should also be giving the height. And I like to give height around like 100 pixels. And that should do. And not to forget, also, we need to be giving class name. And this class name is meant to style the image. So what are we going to add is that I would like to make sure that the image has to be within the product card. So in that case, I like to add object cover, which means object fit cover. And also the height for the image in this case, I'll give H32. And also I like to make it to stay in the center all the time. So margin X, auto. And that should do the job. Let's check our browser. Okay, as you can see here, it says there's an issue right here. We need to make sure to unable to resolve image URL. So as you can see here, I just spotted an error. We're not actually taking the products as in the array. We must be taking product coming from this particular object right here. So no S after the products right here. So just need to be removing the S. And once we've done that, we must also need to make sure to have product to be the object and not products. And let's check our browser. And there you go, there's another error. And this time is a bit different because this we need to make sure that we must be having the host name, like which is coming from cdn.sanity.io to be initialized in our next.config.js. And that way we are able to make it we can actually make that particular URL, which is cdn.sanity.io, to be listed in one of those particular configs. So we need to be adding an array, an object called images. Images object should be having domains. So these domains are the ones which are actually accepted. We can't take any URL except for this particular listed URLs. So that particular list of domains, we should be coming from this particular CDN of sanity.io. So we just need to be copying this and we need to be pasting it inside here. And this will eventually allow images to have this particular link, by the way. So this particular link is basically how we are able to fetch that image coming from the Sanity that we have already set while setting up the products. So as you can see here, now we are able to save this particular file, and of course need to make sure to refresh the page. And there you go. Right now we're able to find this particular card actually being listed right here. And as you can see, this card is actually filling up the entire container, which is not what we would like to have. So we must go back to our card right here, which is basically this one, this particular card right here. This is basically the card. This is the card, by the way, and this is the repeating list of cards. So we must make sure to make this particular card to be having a certain width and height so that it actually aligns to one particular side. And also we must be able to add more than one product cards, and instead of just making this particular cart to fill the entire space of width right here, we must make sure to only occupy a certain grid, by the way, and so that we are able to add more product cards in one row. So how are we able to do that? We must be adding grid inside this particular border right here. So this particular, we're going to be removing the border, and instead of border, we're going to be having grid like this. And besides that, we also need to be having grid columns. So grid col, I like to have around like 4, and this particular 4 is actually meant only for large size screen, basically not for mobile screens but for PCs and of course large size screens as well. So as you can see right here, when I add this particular grid column, right, eventually it actually becomes like this, and this is exactly what I wanted. So this grid cos 4 is actually meant for big sized screens. So in this case, I must be giving the LG, basically whatever that's bigger than medium sized screens. So, and also we must be adding 1 for whatever that is not LG, by the way. So when we check our browser and we go to our mobile app view right here, we must be able to find that when we reduce the radius of width, you can find that this particular card actually fills the entire space. And this is exactly what we wanted it to look like. But as you can see here, when I actually reduce the width, it still occupies the entire space, by the way. So basically LG is not suitable. So try to remove it and make it MD instead. So by making it MD, you're able to find this particular product card does not occupy the entire space, by the way. So when we reduce it a bit more further, and then you're able to find product card actually fills up the entire space. But as you can see here, I can actually fill up 2 product card right here. So for this one, I like to have SM, and SM should be having 2, by the way. So by doing that, we're able to have this 2 product card will be having 2 grid spaces, and that way we're able to have for small size screen we can have 2, and for ultra small size screen we can make it fill up the entire space just like this. And there you go. And right now we can also add other description for this particular product card right here. In this case, we need to be having the name and the price of the particular product. And let's go to the code right here. And right below the image right here, we're going to be adding those 2 text. So first of all, of course, I'm going to make sure again I have to have a create a div first so that it can be separated from the image. So the first one is going to be an h1 tag. And inside the h1 tag right here, of course, I'm going to be making sure the name of the product it should be coming from the object, from that particular dynamic array. So in this case, product name like this. And right below this h1 tag is basically I'll be placing another h1 tag again. And in this case, I'm going to change it to price like this. And when you go to our browser right here, you're able to find those 2 tags will be listed like this. But this is not what I wanted it to look like. I wanted to make this particular text to be aligned to the center. So in this case, I must be adding like a class name for this particular main div right here. And this class name should be having text center. And by doing that, we're able to make the text to align to the center like this. And besides aligning the text to the center, I would also like to give some spacing on the top and the bottom by placing padding Y, and of course around like 10 should do. And besides that, also I must make sure the first text should be bigger and must be having a bold font weight. So must be adding a class name again. And in this case, I have to give the size first. Size should be around 2XL, and font weight should be font bold, just like this. And this time, as you can see right here, the text become bigger, and of course it also became, the weight has also increased as well. And for the price right here, it seems very small. Or I like to add like a symbol, a dollar symbol right here. In this case, I'm just going to make it like a US dollars only. And also inside this particular price again, I have to add class name again. And this particular class name, I have to give the font size to be around like font text equals to XL. XL is kind of small. And also the color, I like to give around like text should be gray of 500. And also a bit more font weight, by the way, just to give some detail so that it does not actually looks very small and thin. And there you go. This is how this is the simple card right here. We can just make it exactly like how in the design right here. And besides that, of course, as you can see right here, there's only 1 image right here. We can actually add more images by going to that particular sanity. We must say npx sanity start. And this will eventually start the server, by the way. So we just need to be clicking on this particular link right here. And this will eventually open this particular server for your CMS, the Sanity CMS. And in here, I like to add more products. So by clicking on products, you're able to have the product that we have already listed, which is AirPods Pro right here. We can actually add more products right away. And that way, I like to add more product. And this time, I like to call GoPro 11 and just like to make do the same thing like how I did for AirPods. And once I added all the details for this particular GoPro, I can just click on publish. And once I refresh the page in our browser, we're able to have this particular product already been listed again. So what I like to do, I like to give some, must be giving some gap right here between the cards. And in our code, we're going to this particular grids right here. We have made this particular grid. And right after this particular grid calls for, I like to give gap. So by giving gap of x-axis, I like to give around like 1, and that should do. And when we check our browser, we'll be able to have some gap right here. And this is just very small gap right here. We can just also give some more gap by just increasing this particular value of the gap, which will look like this. And we can also add more products inside our Sanity Studio right here. And in this case, I'd add 2 more products. And there you go. I just added 2 more products, and this look eventually better looking. And let's check the browser in mobile view. And there you go. As you can see here, we have only given the spaces only for X. So we should also be giving Y so that we are able to have some. As you can see here, I've given gap X. Sorry, just X. You can just give gap -2. And by doing that, we are able to have some space right here. Okay. And let's go. And for mobile and for web, it should be applied as well. And next thing is that when we click on any of this particular product, it should be directed to another page which has the product content of a particular product that we click. So we just need to be wrapping this particular card right here with a link component like this. And this link is actually coming from next/link. And let's wrap this entire card inside this particular link tag right here. And just like this. And of course, this particular link should be also be having an href, and this href should be having the URL where it should be directed to. So in this case, I like to have this quotation marks, and of course, inside here, I like to place /product, and not to forget, this should be wrapped within a curly braces like this. And of course, after /product, it's gonna be the slug of this particular product. So the slug we can just dynamically access by placing this dollar symbol, and of course another curly braces. And inside here, you can just say product.slug, and this will eventually you're able to access the slug right here. And let's check in our browser. So as you can see here, there's an issue with here because we are not actually accessing the slug yet, because the slug is still an object. So we must be placing another value called current, and this will eventually we'll be able to access the value of the slug. And when we go to our product right here, we are able to have this particular, our cursor becomes a pointer. So when we click on this, you're able to find the URL. We'll be having /product/GoPro11 hero. And that's exactly what we wanted, because we just wanted the link to redirect to this particular URL. And we can make that particular page after this. And next thing is that we should also need to make this particular entire cart component into a separate component. And that way we're able to easily access it in the future. So we just need to be going to our components, create a new file called cart.tsx. And inside here, I like to have the boilerplate again, RAFCE, select the first option. And inside here, I just like to take whatever that I've placed inside this particular products right here, just to copy everything, place it inside cart right here. And of course, you need to make sure to initialize the whatever the things that we have not actually done. So for link, you can just take from here. We can take the link from here and we can just place it at the top right here. And that way we're able to access the link. And of course, we can actually fetch the product that's coming from the product list of products by placing it as the props right here. Just to place products right here. And of course, need to make sure to declare the variable type because we are using TypeScript. So we must always do like that. So we must put any. And that way we're able to have access to the product that's coming from here. And also not to forget, we must also need to import image, which is coming from here. You can see at the top right here. And besides image, of course, there's another one called URL for image. Just copy that also. You see it at the top again. And besides that, there's no other issue we have found. So just need to make sure to pass this particular product object as a prop inside our products. So in this case, instead of link right here, I like to remove the link. Just to remove it. And instead of the link right here, I like to place card. And this particular card is coming from ./card like here. And inside this card is like, I like to have the props to be passed. So I will say product equals to product. And that way we're able to pass the product that's coming from this particular map function. And also not to forget, since it's a repeating group, we must give like a key value so that actually they're able to uniquely identify this particular card right here. And that way we're able to have access to the cards that's coming from this particular separate component that we have just made. And when we go to our browser right here, we're able to find this particular cards actually working perfectly. And yeah, when you click on this particular card right here, it also goes to this particular URL by the way. So we have eventually finished with this particular product cards.